Hello and welcome to the RealTime Fantasy Sports Show. I'm Jeff Paur, senior writer with RealTime Fantasy Sports, joined again by Logan Glaser of RealTime Fantasy Sports. Logan, thanks for coming on and helping me out today.
Yeah, as always, Jeff, thanks for having me on. Week 7, we saw a lot of upsets. There were a lot of
We did.
underdog teams that were very surprising by the results
You are
overall.
right. I mean, upsets and then also games that I just didn't expect, like the Colts Browns. I mean, that was a shootout. Who would have saw that
Yeah,
one? I mean,
especially
fantasy points
after
all over the
Watson
place.
went away. That's when the offense started.
Yeah, absolutely nuts. And like you said, upsets too. Minnesota looking very good last night. I guess that maybe they're not dead. Interested to see what they do now going forward because there's some
Yeah, we
trade
had
rumors.
Patriots over the Bills also.
Yep.
That's another big one.
Good week of action for sure. And I don't think we thought a lot of these games are going to be very good last week, and they ended up being pretty good with upsets, like you said. So on today's video, Logan, it's Tuesday, so that means it's time for our waiver wire video. We do this every Tuesday. We give you 3 of our favorite waiver wire pickups as well as a streaming defense to help you out navigate your waiver wires for week 8. And we're going to do that again this week. Logan, there's no buys this week. I had to do a double check. So it's week 8, but they don't have any buys. So I guess that's good, right?
Yeah, it's good for fantasy lineups. It's kind of bad for waiver wire just because your roster is probably going to be full with your bench players that is stashed away unless an injury happened. But besides that, you probably aren't going to be looking too much into the waiver wire. There might be a player here and there, but last week was a big waiver wire week with 6 teams on the bye. Definitely lots of spots to fill in your lineup. But this week, it's definitely a bit more calm.
And I unfortunately think last week was not a great week for many of the pickups. I don't think they
Yeah.
really panned out too well with the Rams running back situation. We'll talk about that a little more with somebody I'm suggesting to pick up, but we'll get into that now, Logan. So why don't you go ahead and give me your first waiver wire ad for week
Yeah,
8?
my first one's he's a bit more owned, 60% owned, and that's Kyler Murray. So Murray should be back probably in 2 weeks, is what they're guessing. I think this is going to be the last week for Joshua Dobbs, starting at quarterback for Arizona. But Murray has finished the last 3 years for quarterback at quarterback number 3 overall, quarterback 10, and quarterback 9. So that's 3 straight years of consistent production, being a top 10 quarterback. If you're struggling at that QB position, he's available in over 40% of leagues still on RT Sports. Go ahead and take him. I think it's a fine stash to go ahead and stash him away. You never know. He has lost some options, such as DeAndre Hopkins, as he had in the past. But they get Michael Wilson, a good rookie, and Marquise Brown's healthy. So it's worth taking a shot for me on him.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely a huge ceiling for him in that offense. So I think that's definitely a must add if you're looking for a QB help and he's available. My first pickup's Darrell Henderson with the Rams. So last week, I think I said Zach Evans. I'm not sure at the time. It
That was
looked
that
like,
was probably the number one person people
yeah,
were targeting last week on the waiver wire.
I thought he was the safest pickup because Henderson wasn't even on the roster at that point. Royce Freeman was on the practice squad. They're both veterans that are kind of washed, in my opinion. But Henderson ended up leading the backfield in touches. He played 57% of the snaps as well. He was the first back on the field ahead of Freeman. Evans didn't even get a carry. So for me at this point, looks like Henderson's the guy. He knows the offense from past experience with them. He had 2 more carries in the game than Royce Freeman, scored a touchdown. He had 18 carries for 61 yards in that game. I still think he could be hit or miss in that offense as long as Kyren Williams is out because he is splitting the work. But if you're going to take a Rams back, I think it's him. He's still available in nearly 95% of leagues on our site. So it was Evans who was picked up. Henderson's owned on just 4.6% of rosters on RT Sports right now. So I don't think that's going to be the case after this week. I think he's going to be the hottest pickup of all the running backs. And go grab him if you're looking for running back help. Could help in that flex spot in a pretty good Rams offense. All right, Logan, who's your next pickup for this week?
Yeah, next one's 23% owned, and that is Taysom Hill. So lots surrounding Taysom Hill, but he is a tight end on RT Sports and will get points as a tight end. But he's had 2 straight 12 plus point performances. Last week he had 4 receptions, 50 yards. He also had 5 rushes for 18 yards and a touchdown. They've gotten the ball a lot more in the last 2 weeks. Week 8, he's playing against Indianapolis, and as we saw, they have been involved in shootouts. They have the second most points given up in the NFL behind Denver, and that was mainly because of that 74 point performance by Miami. So I'm definitely going to be looking at Taysom Hill if I am then at tight end this week. I think he's a good pickup.
He's actually getting used as a tight end as well. That's why he's
He
getting
is.
those catches. Juwan Johnson's been banged up. And I think even when Johnson comes back, Hill could get more work at tight end because he's showing well. It's the first time he's actually got to really, run a lot of routes, and he's produced. So I'm kind of interested to see what happens with him going forward. I think he's definitely a good speculative ad, at least uh, if you
Yeah,
don't want to use him right away.
absolutely.
So my next pickup is actually a team you just mentioned, the Colts. From there, it's Gardner Minshew. So he actually has played pretty well, in my opinion, since he's taken over that starting role. He had a tremendous game last week against a great Browns defense, scored 4 touchdowns, also hit the 300-yard mark for the second straight week. They've been throwing the ball a lot. I know they have 2 good running backs, and they're kind of more of a run-heavy team, but Minshew's been airing it out a ton as they play from behind because their defense isn't very good. So I think he's going to be a legit streaming option going forward. So if you're in a deeper league, maybe a 2 QB league, or you're looking for a streamer at quarterback, I think Minshew's a legitimate guy I would consider picking up. He's owned on just 25.6% of leagues on our site. All right, Logan, who's your last pickup for week
Yeah,
8?
last pickup is another tight end, and that is Dalton Kincaid. He was probably going drafted in rounds 9 or 10 in your in your fantasy draft, but he was probably dropped because he's available in over 50% of leagues right now. He has not had a good start to the season. He finally had his first good outing in week 7. He had 8 receptions, 75 yards, good for 15 fantasy points in standard leagues. He's still not found the end zone yet, but I like him to find the end zone this weekend. He also plays on Thursday night against Tampa Bay, and I like that matchup for the Bills. I think they're going to be coming out mad after losing the Patriots, and I expect a lot of points to be put up by that offense.
Another thing to consider there's Dawson Knox is hurt. So I think that's
He
even
is.
better
Yep.
news for Kincaid. So he
Absolutely.
could be on the field even more because of that. I do. I think Kincaid's got some real good potential the rest of the way. Intriguing to see what he does. My last pickup is another rookie as well. It's Jalen Hyatt of the Giants. So I think this is more of a speculative pickup. I'm not sure I'm just plugging him in my lineup, but I just think it's a matter of time before he starts getting more consistent work. He's done a lot with his few touches. He had 2 catches for 75 yards last week. He has 2 games this year with 75 plus yards. He's a big play threat in that offense, just super talented. And I think they need to get him involved more. So I like him as a speculative pickup. Again, in a week that there's not a lot of great options out there, I think Hyatt is a pretty good grab if you're looking for some receiver help, especially for later in the season. He's owned on just 20.4% of leagues on our site. So I like Hyatt a lot going forward. I think he's going to be a lot more involved in that offense. All right, Logan, let's talk about a streaming defense. A lot of teams like to stream their defenses, and there's some good options out there this week, I think. I had a couple I was considering adding for this
Yeah,
week.
several good options for defense this week, especially with all the teams playing. I'm going to be
Yep.
going with Miami defense and special teams. They are 40% owned. Last week, they had 13 fantasy points against Miami. They scored a pick 6. They had a fumble recovery. They've had 14 sacks in their last 3 games, so they are really starting to click on the defensive side with that. And they have a home game against New England this week, so I think that's a perfect matchup for them going up against Mac Jones. And I expect them to get after New England's offense.
I like that. Good call there. My pickup's a defense I never thought I would suggest after the start of the season, but it's the Giants. They're owned on just 7.5% of leagues on our site. They're 6th in defensive scoring their last 3 games. They had 6 sacks last week. Easy for me to say. Double-digit fantasy points 2 of 3 games as well. They play the Jets. We all know their offense is a little bit of a mess at times. I know Breece Hall's looking better, but Zach Wilson's still a turnover waiting to happen, in my opinion. So I think the Giants are a good streaming defense this week, and they're available in nearly every league out there. Logan, thanks again for joining me this week. Appreciate it, as
Of
always.
course. Thanks for having me on.
It's been a lot of fun talking with everybody out there, and good luck in navigating those waiver wires in week 8. This has been Jeff Paur with RealTime Fantasy Sports. Have a great day.